Anirban, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Anirban, just checking if you can hear my voice.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Okay, I can hear you as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are you checking my voice as well?
Yes, sir. You're audible. Very much audible, sir, Mr. Thadani.
Very much audible and very much visible also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. You are visible. You can see it.
Okay. Do you think you can be a little louder?
Yes, of course. Sorry. Yeah. I am Anirban Bhattacharjee, sir. Our president, Mr. Vijay Thadani, has also joined. He will be basically taking us throughout the session. So.
Okay. So are you in a crowded room that you are wearing a mask?
Yeah, actually, there are people who are working outside my office, so the door is open. So I have kept it on.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Thadani. Good evening.
Mask culture is over and gone.
No, it's too much of dust, sir. That's why.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Too much of dust.
How are you, Mr. Shenoy?
I'm good, sir, and welcome and great to have you with us today evening.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. And so, are you in Calcutta or are you in Jamshedpur?
I'm in Calcutta. I the Chief Commercial Officer at the Tarasin Long Products business. I'm based in Calcutta.
Okay. So you are based in Calcutta.
That's right.
All right. It's very nice to meet you.
Now the pleasure is ours, and really looking forward to hearing you.
Please convey my regards to Narendra.
Sure.
And together. I'll continue. All right. So, we have a couple of minutes. What kind of food should I expect to the audience? What should we expect from the audience?
I don't know if I'm able to hear your voice well. I don't know if it's my connection or not. But what I hear you, Mr. Thadani, is the kind of people who will be joining in. So we have a spread of corporates. We have got entrepreneurs. We have got students who are a part of the Calcutta Management Association. So, and you also got a combination of businessmen come entrepreneurs. So you got a combination of whole set of people, including corporates. So as you kind of mull through your thoughts, I'm sure each of these will be touching point to each of these players here.
And how many people?
Anirban would have, how many are also connected? We got multiple social media platforms. Anirban, why don't you put on the camera?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Actually, we have got a registration of about 370 people, out of which about we are expecting about 80 to 90 on the, and the others would be basically on YouTube and Facebook. The most of them would be on YouTube and Facebook. Most of them would be students. They would like to come in that manner because they don't want to switch on the cameras and all. So they have requested to be on YouTube and Facebook. In fact, we'll be going on live on 4 social media channels simultaneously. One is YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So we are expecting a good numbers today.
Good. That's very nice. And typically, is it an active Q&A or is it passive? Or it depends on the speaker?
So what we have seen in the past is that once you share your thoughts, we have in the chat box separate questions coming in, also going straight to them. So once you complete your thoughts, Mr. Thadani, at the end of the day, end of your session, I'll pick up a few questions which are there and then bounce it off you. So that you have your flow as you speak is uninterrupted. So,
okay.
Is that okay? Does it sound okay?
That's fine. I'll go by whatever works in your setting.
Yeah. So the way it is after Anirban welcomes and gets it going, I would kind of introduce you, and then you take over the session for around 40 odd minutes, however, and then we have question and answers which are coming, which I will kind of collate and then bounce it off with you, and then we conclude it. I think that's the flow which you're talking.
That's fine. I think I received that flow. Somebody sent it to me yesterday. So that's perfectly in order. No problem. We are at 6:29, so I think it's a good time to get.
So in 1 more minute, we'll start. Just 1 more minute I'll take and we'll start off because we are finding people joining on YouTube also. Just 20 people have joined on YouTube. Okay, so in just 1 minute, I'll start off. Just
Sure.
With your permission, I have started the recording also. Mr. Thadani and Mr. Shinoy, thanks a lot. Let us start today's session. People will join in. As I understand, I'll be nowadays people join exactly on time. So we have about 50 here and about 35 have joined on YouTube, 20 on Facebook. Let me just start off the session on time. So welcome, Mr. Thadani. Thanks a lot for being with us today. It's very nice to have you. Thanks to IMA, in fact, for giving us this opportunity of inviting you. I have not seen Mr. Grover joining, but probably he'll also join in the meantime. Thanks to IMA for giving us this opportunity. We welcome you today to our leadership lecture. This is the first leadership lecture this financial year. We are starting with a great gentleman, Mr. Thadani. Thanks a lot, sir, for taking time out. Before I give it over to Mr. Shinoy, President of Calcutta Management Association, to take us throughout the session, I would just like to remind all the participants, all the audience people, that we are live here. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, but please stay connected with us. We'll take question answers at the end of the session. Whenever Mr. Thadani finishes off with his speech, we will take the session questions one by one. Please put it on your chat box wherever you are. If you are on YouTube, I can see that too. So I'll take those questions and put it up to Mr. Shinoy, who will ask the questions, choose and ask the questions to Mr. Thadani. So with no further ado, may I request Mr. Shinoy, President of Calcutta Management Association, to kindly introduce the speaker, welcome the gathering, and take us through it. Sir, up to you, sir.
Thank you, Anirban, and good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be back here in the new year with another wonderful leadership series kickstarting today. They say always make use of a pandemic well. And Mr. Thadani, it's always lucky, not always easy to get you on such a call. But the pandemic has taught us how you can work from home, how not to work from home, and the perils of working from home. But I think one of the advantages we have got today is you're able to snatch out 1 hour of your time, which would have been very difficult in times where we had offline classes and sessions to have your presence. But thank you, Mr. Thadani, first of all, for being here. On behalf of the CMA, I introduce Mr. Vijay Thadani, co-founder of NIIT Group. He is a co-founder of the NIIT Group and serves as Vice Chairman and Managing Director of NIIT Ltd, a leading global skills and talent development corporation. He is also the co-founder of the not-for-profit NIIT University, established with the vision of being the role model of learning, research, innovation, sustainability for the knowledge society. In the past, Mr. Thadani worked as President of the Indian IT Association, MAIT, and as Chairman of the National Accreditation Board for Education and Training under the aegis of Quality Council of India. As an active member of CII, he served as Chairman of CII Northern Region, has also chaired CII's National Committee on Higher Education, and currently serves as the co-chair of CII's Center of Digital Transformation. In addition, he served as Chairman of Board of Governors of Indian Institute of Information Technology, IIIT Allahabad, Chairman of the Board of Governors of MNIT Allahabad, and also as a member of Board of Governors of IIT Delhi. Mr. Thadani is currently serving as a Chairman of All India Board of Technical Education, constituted by the AICTE, and also a member of the Governing Council of the All India Management Association, IMA. He has received the recognition of distinguished alumnus from his alma mater, the Premier IIT Delhi. In addition, he was honored with the position of economic consultant at the world's largest city in People's Republic of China. Thank you, Mr. Thadani, for being here. Welcome to the session. We have about 40-45 minutes of your discourse, and as you speak on the subject of working back from the pandemic, there's nothing like having a cup of tea down the alley with a colleague with the arm around his shoulder, which means so much during these days, which where people are missing. But over to you, and as Mr. Thadani is delivering his notes, and if people have any questions or any suggestions or any points of view, please put it in the chat box. We'll pick it up from there, and end of his session, we'll bounce it off with him. Yes, Thadani, thank you for being here again, and over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Shenoy and Anirban. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm indeed honored, and I am also deeply aware of the fact that this is the time of the day when you could put your arms around a friend of yours and have a cup of tea or whatever else you like to have at this time of the evening. And I'm sure you are taking advantage of that opportunity while you are being here. I also know that this is an important time of the day, and for you to give me this time to listen to what I have to say, I am deeply privileged. So thank you very much. I thought about, since you had given me the choice of picking up the topic, I said, what do people like to hear at 6:30 p.m. On an evening? And I said, look, if it is a lot of theory, then I think we have a problem on our hand. If it is something very contextual, which they have just experienced and or will experience the next morning, I think it is something that people may want to hear. So what I did was I picked up this topic of challenge of being back at workplace. And I noticed CMA very intelligently made being as B capital, which actually is the real challenge of being back at workplace. So, what I want to share with you are just a few disclaimers. Is not an expert thought. It is just some learnings, some personal experiences at NIIT, at NIIT University, and a little bit of what one gets to read. I also want to say that what I'm proposing is no right solution. It's very dependent on the culture that you have in your organization or the organization that you're part of. It is dependent on the ethos and value systems of the company. And it is largely to do with people. I could have talked about technology or what, but I thought the real challenge of being at workplace is the problem of people. You can't start a subject without, or start anything without referring back to the Black Swan event that we have. I don't like to say have just been through, because there is something else. There may be something waiting or lurking around the corner, but definitely COVID from March of 2020 has been a Black Swan event, and one of those events which happens maybe once in your lifetime. And I don't know what we would tell or you would tell your grandchildren, and what your children will tell their grandchildren as to what happened. But definitely it is something which changed our lives. And it's a crisis of unparalleled dimension, absolutely unprecedented. I think the areas that I would like to talk about is how did we cope with it? How did we cope with it? Each one had a difficult situation and a different situation. But I think there is one thing which was common, which was the swift adoption of technology. I think whether we knew technology, did not know technology, we decided we are going to use technology because that was the only way that one could survive. So we learned to learn from home, we learned to work from home, we learned to shop from home, bank from home, entertain from home, and just about everything that we or get well from home or fall sick from home, whatever it was. I think we learned to do that. And in every aspect of our working, there was technology. And people who would have never adopted technology embraced it. And I think in one shot, what could not be done in 20 years happened in a few days, right? So that was a very good thing. I also want to talk about the fact that I think where do we stand as a society, as a country? I think the way we handled the crisis, and I give full credit to all our policymakers, all our administrators, and and wherever they were, I think the agility with which they responded, the resilience which they demonstrated in whatever local ecosystem they were in, the capability that came to fore, and the capacity that we discovered the country had, I think each one of these things we excelled. So I would call our society, whether we call our business society or society at large, I think we were outliers. We were outliers in the world, and having traveled a little bit after that to other parts of the world, I feel very proud of the fact that we all are a part of this ecosystem which has done so exceptionally well. I think if there is one common thread which has come through is the human resilience, and the second is the strong availability of technology. So I think all the initiatives which have been taken in the past, Digital India or whatever, right? I think have and strong digital infrastructure have really come in useful. There are some lessons from that COVID. If COVID is not over, they said it's not a pandemic, it's an endemic. And to that extent, it will keep coming and going, and newer strains will occur. But I think there are some very strong lessons. One is which I referred to, an accelerated digital transformation. Digital technologies were knocking at our doors for many, many years. And then there were some naysayers, and then there were some fence-sitters, huge number of fence-sitters, and then there were some eager beavers who immediately adopted. And I think we have all three in this room. But I think in one shot, all of them became followers. So I think nobody questions digital technologies, and I think that's a very, very positive step forward. The second, as organizations, we discovered that number of costs that we were incurring were actually we could be doing without. So much so that we started believing that those costs actually don't belong to us. And I'm coming to that in a few minutes. And one of the reasons for that was that everybody showed not only resilience, but tolerance. So as organizations, there was a tolerance by our customers. In my company, for example, our customers started paying us faster because they felt that for them to keep us alive was extremely important and mission critical for them. And therefore, to that extent, no liquidity issues came up. Fortunately, we didn't need as much, but whatever that meant. There was higher tolerance on quality, and people were willing to say, yes, okay, we are ready to make amends. We understand you may be in a different time zone because one part of our business, a larger part of our business, is in 40 countries across the world. Our vendors had tolerance, they were willing to wait, but then we said, if as much as our customers are treating us, we need to treat our vendors the same. And I think that built a stronger camaraderie between us. And most important, the people. The people felt that fine, they can't come to office, but they have to do whatever they have to do. So you would have a dining table with 4 people sitting on 4 corners and doing their work, or two children learning, one wife working, one husband working, and they're timing their calls so that they don't have to, overhear each other, or bedrooms became offices, living rooms became offices, in some cases, kitchens became offices, so that everybody could get the privacy. So I'm saying it's an amazing response that had, and a lot of tolerance. But was that forever? I'm sure not, but many of us started believing in that. Culture of innovation actually was shining the brightest. Very interestingly, in last 2 years, the maximum number of entrepreneurial journeys have taken place, and the maximum number of unicorns that have got created. And earlier we used to say we have 10, 20, 30, 40. Now you have to actually look back which week of the year are you in so that you can count the unicorns. That's the entrepreneur in every Indian woke up. And I think at the bottom of this, people realize that organizations which were agile and responded fast, were beneficiaries. But there were organizations who responded fast, but did not put their people first. They did not benefit as much. So end of COVID, I think nobody can say I was not affected. But if I was to draw out people who lost out something, or organizations who lost out something, or organizations who benefited something, the difference would be how they treated their people. And I think that's across the board. We come across them all the time. I just want to also say the background of this. In the background, let's remember that just before COVID, we were talking of future of work, where we said artificial intelligence, IoT, and big data will change the way we work, and newer roles will come up. And we've all read the story of or articles which say 50% of jobs that exist today will not exist tomorrow. Now, with accelerated digital transformation, this is now beginning to bear on us. And as soon, what would have happened in 2 years, maybe as soon as COVID got ended, I think maybe happening now. The second was the workforce. Remember that we were already working with multiple generations. Many of us grew up with baby boomers generation, or maybe Gen X. But I think in this period, the Gen Y and the Gen Z, and Gen Z is a very, very different generation, slightly different or more different than Gen Y. And I think having these multiple cultures work together was something which managers were thinking about, and what kind of organization culture will it relate. Remember, in the last 2 years, people who joined in the middle of COVID, when they came to office, they have never met anybody. They don't know what organization that stands or that they have joined, other than the name that they joined. So that's to be kept in the background. So now that the COVID is, at least the lockdowns are over, and people and organizations are saying, what should we be doing? There is suddenly a bunch of new things which have emerged. So while people believed that as soon as we say, okay, normal business has returned and people will come back to work, organizations found that not everybody, in fact, very few, would like to come back to work. Some people have got used to remote working. Some people find it more convenient, or their family styles have changed. Or some people are just about saying, well, you know what, in this process, I thought about things. And I said, maybe, this is not what I want to do. So there is this whole issue of, which has been defined, and it's all over the world, by the way. We have our own version of that called the Great Resignation. The Great Resignation is people who were operating from home when the organizations have decided that they are coming back to normalcy. They are saying, well, no, I don't want to come back to this organization. Why? Well, because I'm just taking just placeholders. I'm from Kanpur, and I went back to Kanpur or Hoshiarpur or wherever, Balasore. And I found that, that's a better place to live. There's much better things to do, lower cost of living. So I don't want to come. And by the way, in this process, I also discovered that I can do part-time jobs and make more money and do something else. Or I discovered a different passion, that I'm a great musician, so why not I do that? Or I found that YouTube actually pays me more for doing semantics than what you pay me for doing hard work. And therefore, there is this whole issue of Great Resignation. I call that the Great Resignation as caused by two issues. One is the urban burnout, and the second is what I call the Great Aspiration, because people have now suddenly discovered that they actually aspire to do something more. So that's one phenomenon which is on the side. Simultaneously, as soon as things opened up, the demand surged, and there was pent-up demand. There was a lot of liquidity. That's how you have all these unicorns, as well as newer ventures and new businesses and new work styles which emerged. And in this demand surge, government pushed Atmanirbhar Bharat, and with massive liquidity, suddenly people said, what am I short of? I'm short of talent. Why? One part of the talent has not come back. The second is the kind of talent I require for this new tomorrow, I don't have. So let me go look for it. So that led to what is called war for talent. And so now you have some very strange phenomenon that a person leaves his home to join one organization. Before he reaches the gate to join that organization, somebody else hijacks him, and then he never makes it. Sometimes he has traveled in the bus that was to take him to his new office, etc., etc. You hear all kinds of stories. But this war for talent, therefore, created an increased cost of people. Add to that the supply chain shortages, the fact that establishments had to start working again led to a higher cost structure. And when all this war and geopolitical environment and this demand shortage led to inflation, I think we are now in a very interesting situation where organizations would like to get back to work in full form, and their customers are not willing for that high tolerance which they displayed. So then they have to get back to work. They are looking for better things to do, but are not able to find people, have a higher cost structure, and are right now wondering whether we are heading for a recession, lower growth, or whatever. So I think that's the conundrum in which we are in. And in this, the other issue is, by the way, should we go back to our remote working? There was a lower cost structure available. Should we go back to full office working or workplace, physical workplace? I think there are organizations who have taken brave decisions of saying we'll continue to work remote, but increasingly are now taking a slightly step backward. And those who were fully physical have actually kind of resigned to the fact that it's not going to be fully physical, at least for some time to now. And therefore, what is emerging is a hybrid workplace. So the hybrid workplace is the workplace that we are discovering now. And in this hybrid workplace, I think, what do we have to manage? We have to work the new work. We have to manage the new work. We have to manage the new worker. We have to manage new processes. We have to manage new HR. We have to just about manage everything differently. And I think that's what I really wanted to talk about. And I want to just amplify a few difficulties, very real difficulties, which some of you may have already faced and solved. Some of us are struggling with them. Some of us have found some solutions to those. But I thought that is something which we should talk about. So I'm saying that the given is hybrid workplace. I'm not saying one of the challenges we have is how much physical, how much remote, who physical, who remote, and how often physical, how often remote. I think these are all and every organization is trying out experiments. So what I want to do is to talk to you about, I try to put them in some blocks as to 6 challenges and 6 imperatives. Obviously, imperatives cover these challenges in some form, but maybe amplify them or put them in a more structured manner. And these are again backed from experience. So what is challenge number 1? Challenge number 1 is productivity. Now, in remote working, or let's look at, when we talk of productivity, and if you look at it from an, in quotes, employee point of view, and then we look at it from an employer's point of view, an employer's measure of productivity is outcomes, correct? I'm paying you X, Y, Z rupees so that I can produce 20 widgets or software program or banking transactions or whatever I'm paying you for. But I'm paying you for an outcome. Whereas when you look at an employee point of view, they look at their productivity in terms of output. Of course, they say, well, I gave my 8 hours. In these 8 hours, I generated so much. I generated so many lines of code, or I moved so many machines, I did whatever. But the gap which exists, there were solutions found in the full physical environment as to how the outcome and output, because there were relationships which were built. Even then, there were functions like sales, where you could have output, you could pound the streets, but you may not achieve the outcome. But there were other jobs where outcome and output were kind of fairly correlated. But now outcome and output are not correlated in a hybrid environment. You may say, well, at least for the physical part they are, and the remote part they aren't. No, because we work together as an organization. That's why it's an organization. And I think that productivity issue is one of the things which is challenging the organization. The second issue, which is to do with people and employees, and I will keep talking of employees again and again, because I just read a very interesting line and I wanted to read that out to you. In any crisis, climate, financial, war, has humans at the center and most affected. The depth of human suffering often gets relegated to the background. And the difference between good governance and not so good governance is how sensitive are you to the humans who are getting involved in it. So if we look back, that's so true for just about everything that we have seen in our lives. So now, looking at it from another challenge point of view, is employees are becoming very, very careful and aware of their well-being. And well-being not only defined in terms of physical well-being, because now I just asked Anirban, you are wearing a mask, and he explained to me why. And obviously, he's very aware of that. And so are all of you, and so would I be. But in addition to that, in addition to physical health, this time of isolation, this time of low interaction or interacting only with a few, very, very few select people has led us to kind of a very different mental state. And therefore, mental health has also become extremely important. And therefore, well-being and physical well-being and mental health is the second challenge which organizations are facing. Now, you may say, yes, in our factories, we've always looked after the well-being of our people. Yes, all organizations have. But I don't think we have worked on the mental health. Do we have, or we have the readiness? So organizations have had to gear up very, very quickly to be aware of their people's well-being and mental health, and is one of the parameters now to look at the overall health of the organization. And I'll come to when I talk about imperatives. The other small thing is that there is an element of negativity associated with well-being and if you are going to be in office. Why? Because there'll be so many people, and we don't know what we are getting, where everybody else is coming from, etc., etc. I must say it does have a positive impact on mental health, but that depends on how the organizations have treated it. The third area, the third challenge is work-life balance. Many of us grew up working very hard because we knew at the end of the day, there was a bed that we could go back to sleep to. There was somebody waiting for us. There was food waiting for us. But now we have realized that, my God, what all we missed when we were not at home. And when we spent 2 years at home, we realized that life had many, many more things than work. And some of those good things we missed. So people have become more aware of work-life balance. And of course, the trauma that all of us went through, and I don't think anybody was spared, of that trauma, where either a near one or sometimes a very dear one would be affected, and to that extent, we saw that suffering together. And I think the work-life balance has suddenly taken a larger and amplifying role. And then, of course, people realize that there is burnouts, and I just mentioned to you about the urban burnout, and similarly, there is also, by the way, a stress of now being in office or outside office, as the case may be. The fourth challenge is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Many organizations had decided that they would take strong measures to promote diversity within the organization, and we have all realized that that is a very, very important part. Mr. Shenoy comes from an organization which takes great pride, and I have been part of that organization many light years ago. So I take pride in that as well, in that group. And I think diversity, equity, and inclusion, these are also areas which are challenges now in a hybrid environment. How will you handle which part comes to office, which doesn't, when do they come, when do they don't, and so on and so forth. I think there are challenges, and when I come to imperatives, it's also a question of how will you measure people's performance, when especially with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion. How will you reward equity of outcomes to those who maybe never came to office, and those who came to office saying, I hung around in a bus, I traveled 2 hours, and somebody sitting at home is getting rated or treated better. So stuff like that. And not only that, from a manager's point of view, oh, this person I see every day, I know how good he is, how hard he works. The other guy I haven't seen. Now his outcome may be better than the one you haven't seen. So then there are proximity biases which come in. And I think how are we handling those are challenges. Most important thing is engagement, and what I call the social glue, the glue that binds the organization. The glue that binds the organization is culture. So now imagine if you are a part of an organization and nowadays everybody is experiencing 20% plus, or and organizations which have 50% plus attrition rates. If 2 years back when they shut and when they open again and that workforce comes in, do you realize that most of the people have never seen each other? So they are part of an organization which they call whatever they call. And when they come to the office, they find, oh, this person, my colleague, I didn't know. I don't know you. And here I'm supposed to be working with you. So how does the social glue work? How do we bind people with the culture that the organization was? How do we promote those cooler talks or the coffee room talks or in the corridor highs and hellos? So how do organizations, somebody can argue, look, that's not the reason we are getting back to work, to have cooler talks. And of course you have to have, because if people are not engaged with each other, the social glue will not form, and the social glue doesn't form, then the organization doesn't perform. So that's a definite challenge that you have. And what kind of measures are required to be put in place is one of the imperatives that I'm talking about. And then there is a sixth challenge, which is the great rethink. Now, the great rethink is everybody who was coming to office and now got used to working from home is asking himself, do I really like my organization culture? And by the way, I believe, and I don't have sufficient evidence, but just about everybody got an opportunity to get acquainted to another organization at least, or got involved in another organization, or at first maybe have moonlighted with another organization. All these things one is hearing, one is saying. So in that, they may have discovered, oh, you know, that the other organization's culture My culture is not as good. I don't think I have been treated fairly. I don't think I have all the opportunities and that excitement that I really joined this organization for. And it's not the organization. Oh, I decided I will be ABC or whatever work I do. But that's not what I want to do. I think there is a better thing to do. I just said in the beginning that just doing some antics on YouTube can earn me more money, and that seems like a booming economy. Why do I want to go back to work? Or I've discovered a new love. I was a great musician, I didn't realize. And now that I have decided I'm going to pursue that. And by the way, there are people who are willing to reward me for that. What's wrong with it? No problem. So the great rethink is making people wonder, those people wonder who were diehards to be with the organization. And I think if some of you have not experienced these, then I think you would soon be. But if those who have experienced have either known how to handle these or if time permits, some of you may want to share also. So therefore, what are the emerging imperatives? I do want to make sure that I leave you with the 10, 15 minutes that you have for questions. So what are these emerging imperatives of the new normal? I call it the new normal, which is the hybrid workplace. And I say the starting up, I said very much like the people are doing the great rethink, your employees are doing the great rethink. I think it's time for an organization to do the great rethink and really visit their purpose. Why do they exist? Are they helping the society or hurting the society? Are they helping the environment or hurting the environment? And if all these issues have to come in and you rediscover your purpose, actually you can create a solid, inspiring future that your people can work for. Why? Because if people don't feel aligned with the vision and what the organization stands for, I can tell you for NIIT, we had a vision that we want to train 1 billion people. And now that vision or that inspiration of training 1 billion people has become stronger because we are realizing that more and more people require skilling and just about everybody requires reskilling, even those who thought they were skilled, right? So there is a new vigor in the organization. There is a new, you can see our time is now. That's what the organization is saying. Our time is now, and they're inspired by the vision. So how do you create an inspiring vision? So when you create an inspiring vision, individuals build an aspiration for themselves in that vision. Otherwise, if you don't have an inspiring vision, they build an aspiration around what they think will be aspirational enough. So I think going back to the roots, starting with the purpose and revisiting the vision that you stand for will be the first step for creating alignment in the organization. And we follow a model which I don't want to use this opportunity to talk about some other day. We call it the organization's job is to create inspiration. People respond with their aspirations. Organization gives them respiration by giving them space to achieve what they want. And then individuals or NITians respond with perspiration to achieve the outcomes that we all envision together. I can go into more details at a different time, but not right now. But I'm just saying, revisiting this company's purpose and mission are very, very important. The second is reassurance that the value systems of the organization are people first and are aligned around people first. That reassurance is very, very important. So going back to the roots on the values and beliefs that the organization has, in my opinion, is the first imperative. The second is to build a hybrid workplace. hybrid workplace is not the same workplace with half the desk empty. Actually, the workplace of the past will lose relevance, because workplace of the past said, if you have space, cubicles, then you would be able to do much better. Though, of course, you have the benefit of going out to the water cooler. But collaborative workplaces have to take into account the engagement aspect of how people should look forward to enjoying the workplace or feeling like being there workplace, rather than just I have a cubicle or I have a desk or I have a workstation and I have to do my job, look down on my computer or look down on my paper, sit in the meetings and work like in an autopilot mode, and then back at the end of the day and go home. That's not how it is. People have to look forward to being here, and I'll give you an example of that. The second is respecting people's priorities. There are people whose children need looking after now that the families have got either separated or nuclear families have emerged. How do we make sure that the workplace rules, the hybrid workplace rules, permit that, and we manage those transitions well? In the hybrid workplace, the third element is, how do you divide the work which should be done physically and the one which should be done remotely? I think over a period of time, the experience across the world is that deep work which requires high concentration can be done remotely, and work which is more collaborative and more engagement driven is something that can be done physically. So cubicles of all the places is actually not required, because cubicles don't promote collaboration. So if workspaces have to be redesigned, and I think when we are designing these workplaces, we also have to remember that when hybrid workplace is being redesigned, it's not only an issue of some people here, some people there, working collaboratively, using digital systems. We have a new threat on the block, which is cybersecurity, information security. I think Sunday's Economic Times said that India has experienced perhaps very, very large surge in ransomware. I'm sure all of you are familiar with ransomware and multiple other intrusions that organizations are facing. And behind cybersecurity lies another dark animal, which some of us who are facing the rest of the world, and that is data privacy of an individual. I think we got our first taste of it 2 days back when UIDAI issued that, don't share your Aadhaar card in public with just about everybody, and everybody is not authorized to ask you for all the details of your Aadhaar card. Of course, that is still to be resolved as to what the right thing to do is, but you can see that privacy of individual data is becoming important. So when we design hybrid workplaces, these are some issues to be considered. Then the work that takes place in that hybrid workplace, that needs to be looked. So a beautiful term that I came across, and we use that, we design work that people love. If you ask yourself what you were doing in your organization today, did you enjoy every moment of what you did? I'm sure all of us have some moments of the day, and many of us have many moments of the day, and many of us have only those moments when you feel very, very claustrophobic. You say, no, I don't want to do this work, but I have to do it. How do we make sure that we take the routine out of that? And fortunately, digital transformation helps us in managing that routine and creating more challenge in the work and anticipation of saying, today I will do something which will make a very, very big difference to society, to the organization, to my department, or whatever else I'm doing. Then, of course, in designing work that people love, we have to take account of the diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations, making sure that everybody gets a fair chance of doing the challenging work or collaborative work, as the case may be. And then our assessment systems have to be such that there is the fairness of assessment and there is no proximity bias which is working, and there are career opportunities which are given to everyone. So I think that's the third imperative. So first was visiting company's purpose, second was hybrid workplace design, third was designing work that people love, and fourth is HR policies. HR policies were designed for a fully physical workplace. They have to be reconsidered. How do we focus on reskilling? Reskilling is a very, very important consideration, not hard skills, digital skills, that is given. Everybody needs it. But I think the fact that the assembly line work that used to happen when we were in office will now be replaced by full stack, which means you have to be able to solve the whole little problem that you have for yourself. That's called full stack professionals. And then the third element of reskilling is of increased or enhanced sensitivity to fellow human beings, social sensitivity, soft skills of understanding, because people are coming from different kinds of traumas. And I think how we respond to that and how do we build the capability to respond to that, I think is important. This is not only for people who are employees, it's actually stronger and more necessary for people who are managers. They have to be sensitive to these requirements as well. And last part in HR policies is promoting entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, and for once, I would actually stand up and say, very much like entrepreneurs get rewarded for failures, in entrepreneurship, you need to reward people who take risks, try out innovative solutions, and fail, as much as you would to those who would succeed. Prioritizing the well-being part, the work-life balance part, and increasing the social engagement, creating X% of your budget to make sure that you are focused on engagement are some of the issues that you should look for. And the sixth thing which I want to talk about is the search for the balance. There is nothing called how much physical, how much remote. You have to discover it for your own organization. Therefore, you have to experiment and manage this. Now, what can't be measured can't be managed. We have learned that a long time ago, which means you need to have a measure by which data gets captured at various points of the organization to see how this new design is emerging. And then there is a feedback loop which sets right these things as you go along. If people feel that you are aligned and you are worried for their future as much as you are worried for your organization, in fact, they feel that people's future comes first and organization will automatically benefit is the policy, then they are likely to stick with you longer. We always do these employee satisfaction surveys, but there we talk about the work environment, the compensation you receive, the training opportunities, all that is true. But in addition to that, now employee satisfaction surveys have to talk about well-being, have to talk about the new sets of skills, have to start asking about, do they see a meaning in the job that they are looking at? How do they find working and engaging with the rest of the people? These were questions, many of these were questions which were not asked earlier. So I think if we do all that, then we are good to go as far as going ahead with getting back to the new normal or new workplace. I think each one of you, I know you are a heterogeneous audience. Some of you are students. If you are a student, you know what are the skills you need. You need digital skills. You need to improve your social skills, increase sensitivity, and make sure that you are an engaging person and always willing to learn. If you are an employer, well, I gave you the policies. And if you are just one of those who is in between, then you should know that your jobs are not guaranteed. Because in the new economy, these ups and downs will continue to happen. And if you don't reskill yourself, don't change yourself, then you can't believe that you will have this job forever. So just want to close saying we know a crisis is too good an opportunity to go wasted. So we have a choice to go back and say, well, no, I'll go back to my old place of work and I'll be fine. I think you'll be mistaken. Look at it the other way around. Look at it the other way around. There is an old saying which says, you can let things happen or you can make things happen. In this case, letting things happen is not a solution. You will have to make things happen. You will have to take that step forward to make things happen, whoever you are. You are a student, you are an employee, you are an employer. And therefore, you have to think of all these actions. But there is a great opportunity. The whole world is struggling with these answers. Those of us who find the answers faster than others will be the great beneficiaries. In short, I said, our time is now, your time is also now. I'll stop here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thadani. You know what? I think we have just heard a masterclass in managing of people. Wonderful session, Mr. Thadani. I think, just seeing and hearing you, you could feel the emotions come right from your heart. And I'm reminded of a quote that leadership and parenting are not popularity contests. And I guess in NIIT, I'm sure if you do a quick check engagement survey today, I'm sure it must be somewhere in the top 90 percentile. But I think, thank you very much for this session. In fact, as I was taking notes, I ran out of my papers in the kind of various pointers which you said. And I kind of echo most, if not all, because we have all kind of lived the thoughts what you said. Right from building a hybrid workspace, respecting people's priorities. If there's one thing which the pandemic has taught us, I think is gratitude. You did touch upon how organizations treated people. I don't think many companies, let employees go without salary for a day, but how they have taken care. I know various companies taken care of children, of employees who have lost their parents. And the least we could do as individuals is to ensure that our maids, our drivers, the grocery guy around the corner, the milkman, at least they are paid irrespective of what they've done. I think gratitude is something which I felt right on the top, which I was, it is just a ringside view of what we have witnessed. And what you just echoed is gratitude from the people, for the organization, and for the organization to the people. I think is a beautiful masterclass of the way one could manage a pandemic. I've kind of taken on various notes, and also I've got plenty of questions coming in. But the first thing which I'll maybe try to take on is, you said about respecting people's priorities. And one of the thoughts which came about was the lines of blurred between office and work. At some point of time in the days when you are offline, at least 6:37, you could say delete start office and drive back home. But unfortunately, these days, it's 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. Somebody sees your Teams meeting, timeline is safe, is free, and in goes a Teams meeting, right? So the question which is coming here is, well, it's not so much related to this, but more from the hybrid workplace, wherein it is here to stay. And as you said, searching for the right balance is important. The question here is, it comes from the professor of economics here. Do you think hybrid workplace will increase unemployment for the lower strata of the society? Do you see any inkling on that line?
No, I think it will increase. It will have different opportunities for different parts of society. But I think lower or higher is not the issue. It is the skilled and what skills you have, right? Hybrid work environment will actually give many more opportunities for organizations to try out people whom they had never been able to hire, for example, right? So, in that melting pot, I don't think the loser will be people from the lower strata of society. No, I don't think so. In fact, as an organization, you will take steps, and many organizations, ours included, are making sure that we step out and pull out people from different parts of society, and many of them are not able to come to office because they have another engagement. So how do we use them? How do we use them in the time that they can make themselves available? I think is a possibility. It depends on the work that you are in. But as you said, earlier we used to say 6:30 delete office. That, by the way, is never going to happen again. We are now part of a knowledge society, or in information or knowledge economy. So in an industrial economy, you could shut off the machine. Now the machine is you. And this machine doesn't shut off. Even in sleep, it is working. So whether somebody calls you, whether pings you or doesn't ping you, your ideas and your mind is always remaining alive. And I think we'll have to get used to a new way of living and creating that space where you can shut off your phone and watch an IPL match or a movie, or notice that people have stopped seeing movies and are happier with 20-40 minute episodes of a serial, right? And one of the reasons for that is that you can't give long attention spans. Your attention spans have shrunk and you need changes. So I think all these are things which will happen. But definitely, to answer your question, I don't think lower strata of society is at risk of losing out. If at all, I think they'll get more inclusive. Organizations will get an opportunity to be more inclusive.
Yeah, wonderful. In fact, the point which you said, also the well-being of the people, when you can't switch off, and you did touch about a lot about health as well as well-being, because it kind of plays on the mind. And when you don't see your colleagues, it just arm around the shoulder would have been so useful. Otherwise, you would have really gone bonkers. I just connect this question to another one which comes from a student, and is talking about NIITs in the field of education. What the pandemic has done is perhaps taught us a new way of teaching and pedagogy. But for the rural folk who are still not so connected, have they lost out? Or is there something that NIIT, I don't know if you all are doing something about it, or how do you ensure that entire India is up and running?
Very good question, and very, very genuine concern. So again, there are two sides of a coin. Connectivity is the real issue. Connectivity is the real issue. If you have connectivity, then sitting in a remote village, you could be attending the lecture of the best professor of economics in the country, right? That's accessibility. That's one way of getting access. But yes, if you are not connected well, right? Or you have a mobile phone, but you do not have electricity in the village in which you are in, unless you have a bicycle with a dynamo with which you have learned how to charge your cell phone. And by the way, many people did that. You will be at a disadvantage. But that disadvantage is wherever you will have poor connectivity. Once you have connectivity, I think that actually it's a great advantage. And the good news is that we have now a very, very good quality of connectivity, and much better to happen. You can see Ukraine continued with their whole internet system, thanks to Elon Musk's satellite-based system, which actually kept the whole country connected in the middle of the war when everything else was cut off. So I think all those are beginning to happen. If rural folk lost out a little bit, yes, I think they did, because they did not get the same benefit of connectivity. But those who got connected got the benefit of attending the best possible or getting the best possible education that they could have got elsewhere.
We've got plenty of questions coming here. I just pick up two more, Mr. Thadani. I know we have taken time till 7:30. You did talk about startups, and you said India was a great place for startups. We have almost 100 unicorns by now, and as you said, you keep getting a unicorn popped up in every a week or so now, with almost $330 billion valuation. The question here comes maybe from a student who is asking, just give me a second. Maybe is it more of a generic, sir, can you please suggest about improvements to overcome the hurdles while building a startup? I think the generic question has got plenty of flavors to it, but anything which comes to your mind, if somebody who is fresh entrepreneur who wants to build a startup.
Be ready to fail. Because when you start saying, I have nothing to lose, everything to gain, there is a very good chance that you will benefit a lot. And I think somebody has to put that trust in you. 2 months ago, I could have said, you just have to whisper out in the air that I want to be an entrepreneur, and you will have a queue of investors saying, I want to give you money, I want to give you money. Of course, not to any idea, but if you had a great idea, you could always get it funded. That I think is true even now. So I don't think you should believe that what is coming in the way is money. What is coming in the way is your desire to succeed and how unique is the idea that you create. If you are willing to stick your neck out and be ready to, that's not the way you go out. I mean, when who's the great chess player, the 16-year-old Pragana, he went out to play without figuring out whether he was ready to fail. That's not an issue, but he was not ready to fail the CBSE. So he lost the world final at 2:20 a.m. and 8:45 he was sitting in his CBSE exam. So I think if you have that kind of a commitment and focus and passion, then chances are you will not fail. But you should be ready to put everything behind that, and I think you will succeed.
Wonderful, Mr. Thadani. I was also told for entrepreneur, if you have to fail, you fail fast, so that
Yes.
you are able to quickly learn and then move on. Otherwise, it'll be it's prolonging the inevitable. I come
Tell
to
your dad and tell your dad to give you a pat on the back.
Wonderful being with you, sir. And maybe a last question, a little humorous one though. One of the blessings of COVID has been that it has killed organizational gossip and politics. I don't know which company this gentleman is, but politics is there to stay in any organization. And once you have 3 people on board, then politics is bound to be there. So wouldn't that resurface if all come back to work?
No, I think it's like air. It will be wherever you are, right? Its color and temperature and the kind will vary. But I have to see that politics took a lower seat with the external crisis. The external crisis actually put the politics at a lower level. Just see how our politicians actually work together. That itself, I think, is an indication, because people realize that after you peel the onion, at the end of it, every human being is the same, and those basic things of trust and integrity and respect for each other is between any 2 human beings. So I don't think politicking will change. But yes, it went through. Some people may have thought, oh, that's the end of it. But as I said, that was again tolerance. That tolerance will be going now.
Wonderful. So we have come to the end of our session, and I must tell you that it's been one of the most fabulous sessions for any corporate, for any entrepreneur, for any student or any employee. There's so much to give and so much to learn. And I'm sure that we'll have a ringside view of NIIT sometime when we go down and see how your company is progressing. But thank you so much for your time, sir. It was a pleasure from CMA. I leave everyone with a thought from what we have heard Mr. Thadani speak. The difference between good governance and not so good governance is how the well-being of people is being done. Organization job is to give inspiration, and the employees respond with perspiration. On that note, Mr. Thadani, thank you very much. I think it's been a wonderful session, as I said, and looking forward to being connected again. And CMA is ever grateful to you for having this session with us. Thank you very much, and good evening.
You use the word gratitude, so I have only one word: express my gratitude to all of you for being so patient in listening to me and then coming up with your wonderful ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anirban, we can close the session for the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Thadani. So we call it a day. We will just log off, and thanks a lot for everyone for joining in. We have had, just to give a feedback, we have had more than 100 views on YouTube already, and here we had about 80. So I think means we were joined by people later during the speech when we got the momentum going. So thanks a lot, Mr. Thadani. We look forward to having you once again in our other events that we usually have, our signature events, so that we can have the privilege of listening to you. Thanks to you, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Shinoy. We call it a day. Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
I'll disconnect now.
Yes, sir. Please. Thank you.